Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of Polar News. On this video, we're going to be covering over the TD Banks' money laundering case that spanned over in $3 billion drug cartels' money and how they laundered it. Made the biggest news case in the United States. First off, what is TD Bank? TD Bank is a Canadian bank, yes, that has operations in Canada and the USA and other parts of the world. Quite recently, on October 10, 2024, they have pleaded guilty today and agreed to pay over $1.8 billion in penalties over here, according to the Justice Government Department, and in violations of the Bank Secrecies Act and for money laundering. They stated in their compliance of resources needed to obey the law, and today's in the historic era that a bank pleads guilty and has to pay the largest penalty ever imposed under the Bank Secrecy Act.
Largest bank has agreed to pay a record $3 billion in fines to American regulators for allowing drug cartels to use the bank's services for money laundering. Let's bring in Nivrita Ganguly to break it down for us. Nib, what exactly has TD pleaded guilty to, and how significant are these fines?
Well, the fines, they're historic, really. It's the largest penalty ever imposed by US regulators on a bank under the anti-money laundering law. In fact, TD has now become the first bank ever to plead guilty to charges of conspiracy to commit money laundering in the US. Now, the crux of the misconduct and what TD has now admitted to is that over a period of 6 years, the bank allowed 3 money laundering networks to transfer more than 670 million US dollars through the bank. Now, these were criminal networks laundering what is considered to be illegal earnings, and at least one of the 3 were laundering drug money. So the 3.1 billion, it's a result of penalties from 3 different US authorities, including the US Justice and Treasury departments. TD's also been hit by an asset cap, which means that its US business is now facing growth restrictions. Now, that's a way for regulators to ensure that the bank improves its compliance.
There you go. That's how it all went down. TD Bank and their US branches have been caught over criminal money laundering cases, which involves multiple crime networks and which are organized crime, and they are really difficult to follow. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the federal government is concerned about the actions of TD Bank's U.S. subsidiaries that led to a historic $3 billion plea deal to settle money laundering charges this month. But the actions of TD Bank in the United States are, well, they're different compared to the Canadian jurisdiction. The U.S. government has accused TD of ignoring multiple red flags from high-risk customers and creating a convenient environment for bad actors to exploit. TD also failed to monitor over $18 trillion in customer activity for about a decade, enabling 3 money laundering networks to transfer illicit funds through accounts at the bank, according to U.S. authorities. TD Bank has to pay $3 billion upfront, facing an asset cap to resolve the U.S. money laundering probe. So, how does this affect customers and people who bank with TD Bank, the clients of the bank, that is? So, when a bank has to pay $3 billion out of pocket to a U.S. or any government regulator, then the bank has to raise interest fees on existing people's mortgages, as well as imposing higher wire transfer fees, which could hurt their customers. And one more thing that should be kept in mind is that The money that goes towards the US Treasury in this case is not in the people's pockets, but for the benefit of anyone, but this goes towards reaping the benefits of what banks do, which in this case is laundering people's money, or criminals to be more specific.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before we get started, I want to extend my sympathy to the millions of Americans, and I want to thank all the volunteers. Today, TD Bank pled guilty to multiple felonies, including conspiring to violate the Bank Secrecy Act and commit money laundering. TD Bank has also agreed to a $1.8 billion criminal penalty. Combined with civil enforcement actions announced today by other agencies, the United States will be imposing a total of approximately $3 billion against TD Bank. TD Bank created an environment that allowed financial crime to flourish. By making its services convenient for criminals, it became one. Today, TD Bank became the largest bank in U.S. history to plead guilty to Bank Secrecy Act program failures and the first bank in history to plead guilty to conspiracy to commit money laundering. This is also the largest ever penalty under the Bank Secrecy Act and the first time the Justice Department has assessed a daily fine against a bank. As part of the plea agreement, TD Bank will fundamentally restructure its corporate compliant program at its U.S.-based bank, which is the 10th largest in the United States. The bank has also agreed to the imposition of a 3-year monitorship and a 5-year term of probation. While the bank has started its remediation, it will continue to remediate and improve its anti-money laundering compliance program to ensure that the bank operates lawfully and safely moving forward.
Now, this is quite interesting because despite being the 10th largest bank subsidiary in the U.S., they've served many people over the past few decades. When we look at the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, they also claim that $1.3 billion has been filed against the TD Bank. This means that anti-money laundering programs, as well as the network, is filing more suspicious activity reports on thousands of suspicious transactions. TD Bank facilitated over $400 million in transactions who pleaded guilty to money laundering in 2022. And now the main question here is what happens to money that the U.S. Treasury receives from TD Bank? Well, let's search it up. So here is a question. What happens to the funds that TD Bank gives to the U.S. Treasury Department? So, the funds collected by the U.S. Treasury from penalties are generally used to support law enforcement efforts, enhance regulatory compliance, and fund initiatives aimed at preventing financial crimes. This includes bolstering the capabilities of agencies that monitor and enforce financial regulations, thereby contributing to the overall integrity of the financial system. The implication of the payments is that TD's bank's significant financial penalties highlight the importance of compliance with anti-money laundering regulations. The bank's failure to adequately monitor transactions, which include trillions of dollars, that pose a high risk for abuse, resulting in these substantial fines. Such penalties serve not only such as a punishment but also as a deterrent for other financial institutions, imposing fear and respect in the system, emphasizing the need for robust compliance programs to prevent similar situations and violations in the future. In summary, the funds that TD Bank pays to the U.S. Treasury, particularly in the context of penalties, are used to enhance regulatory frameworks and support law enforcement efforts against financial crimes. And that is a question. So, for all you viewers out there, you should always come up with these creative and mind intriguing questions that help you awaken your mind to how the world is shaped and designed. Because people will not allow you to do your own critical thinking, and people will try to dissuade you from thinking on your own in a critical manner. Using your own logical and creative thinking skills to awaken yourself to these for unforeseen consequences of how being ignorant to the fact that people don't know, for example, cases like this. Yeah. Hope you enjoy this episode. Make sure you subscribe and like more content.